Welcome to the Wave Strength. Innovative pension solutions for a secure retirement. Presented by Pacific Life.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on another exciting episode of the Wave Strength podcast series. We have a great show lined up for you today, and joining us on today's episode is Brian Woolfolk, head of the institutional division for Pacific Life Insurance Company. Brian, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jim. I've been a long-time listener, first-time caller. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you on the pod today.
Awesome. Excellent. Yeah, it's very good to have you. And, what we wanted to do is just have a discussion, to kind of get to the conversation of the state of the institutional division, why Pacific Life felt that there was the need for an institutional division, maybe some of the successes that the division has had in these last couple of years, and then, talk about the future. But first, and I am not trying to sell something as you normally do on the podcast, but first, let's maybe dive into your background, Brian, for those listeners that may not be familiar with your background. Perhaps you can share a little bit about your history.
Yeah, happy to, Jim. Thanks for the intro. I'm a proud graduate of the University of Minnesota, Go Gophers. An actuary by background. So I've spent most of my career in the product development, product design space, variable annuities, fixed annuities, institutional annuities. So I spent a lot of time in the product and product development space. Began my career up in Minneapolis after an opportunity in Des Moines, relocated to Des Moines, and then in 2010 had the opportunity to come join the Retirement Solutions Division with Pacific Life in their product design area there. So that's really where I joined Pacific Life, again, working across the spectrum of all new product development, product design, strategy, implementation, those sorts of things. I had the opportunity in 2018 to lead the sales and marketing for the Retirement Solutions Division, which, while connected, was a very different experience for me, but a great opportunity with some of the best in the business in the retail annuity space. And then one of the reasons that we're here today was in the beginning of 2020. Little did we know back then what we'd be facing here almost 2 years later in terms of a pandemic. But the company decided to start a new division called the Institutional Division, bringing three various product lines from around the company together under one focused leadership, and really trying to focus on those particular areas, which of course I think we're going to dive into today.
That's very good. Now, before we go any further, you mentioned Minnesota, but you being from Omaha there, how those Huskers doing, huh? Speaking of sports.
Oh, ouch. That hurts. I think I can see my neighbors already are going to be big fans of the Wave Strength podcast here.
Yeah. People are taking away the lawn ornaments. Anyway, so the discussion too, I think is an important one. You talk about how Pacific Life made that decision, Brian, to take those three areas of business, bring them under a more focused leadership with many resources to back those lines of business up. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Maybe you can help our listeners understand the level of resources, frankly, and maybe, in our over 154-year history, I mean, how many times has something like this happened? And how do those significant resources play out, and how they will play out in the future?
Yeah, sure, Jim. I think it's a phenomenal opportunity, as you mentioned, inside of a 154-year-old Fortune 500 company. Not very many times in a career do you have the opportunity to be a part of a startup. And it's probably the most exciting opportunity I've had in my career, which has spanned, over 20 years at this point, to be able to create and build. And we talked about my background a little bit earlier, being a product person. That's something that really kind of excites me, is the opportunity to build something, to figure out, solve new problems in different ways. And that's really what we've tried to do here. Effectively, what we did, and I mentioned the product lines earlier, I mentioned that we brought some product lines together. Those were our pension risk transfer business, our stable value wrap business, as well as starting up a spread lending program, and really trying to bring those things together for that focus that you mentioned. For me, and some of the reasons as to why we were looking to bring these together is there's a lot of demand for institutional products right now. And as an institutional business, there's just so much demand in the market today. And you can see that in our results. You can see that in our competitors' results. And the reason for that is really a couple of things. One, it's our strong ratings as Pacific Life, one of the strongest ratings in the industry, as well as our strong capital position, just a very financially sound organization that can be counted on to be there for the next 154 years. Our institutional products, they provide diversification to our retail businesses. That's very important as an insurance company, which is diversifying risk. The low sustained interest rates that we've continued to see over the last number of years and potentially into the future here, our businesses really provide the opportunity that our cost of funds goes up and down on a daily basis, and we're able to price at that level. So if rates go up tomorrow, we were going to provide a different price in our business than if we had a lower interest rates today. Probably the tying to that, credit risk is a preferred risk of the organization, and we have some of the best in the business that manage our investments for us. So with all that, I think that's one of the major reasons that the division was formed, and really trying to have some great success as we move forward here.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and we are very excited about these next steps as we grow, and being part of, like you said, that startup with the startup mentality is an exciting thing. You mentioned earlier, Brian, standing that division up at the beginning of a global pandemic, and little did you know, back in November, December 2019, what the next 5 months would lay before you. But, let's talk about that, this continued ability, to adapt, to innovate, and frankly, to succeed during the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about, wow, did we not know what we were getting into? Absolutely not. We did not. I don't think anybody did this time 2 years ago. But you think about, I kind of joke with my senior leadership team, there's a handful of us, and we've never actually been in the same room all at the same time. Various pockets of us were able to before offices and everything shut down. But, we're kind of geographically diverse and haven't had the opportunity to all sit down in the same room. So you think about what we've been able to do going from, plus or minus 20 employees on day one, January 2nd, 2020, to where we sit today, almost at the end of 2021, where we're plus or minus 100 employees. Was we had to be able to go recruit. And really what we were looking for from a talent development standpoint, a talent acquisition standpoint, it was really about needing a team with an entrepreneurial mindset. Like, we're not going to be a significant 1,000-person unit here. We're going to be pretty small. We're going to be lean and mean. And so really looking for those with that mindset, and really believed in creating something great, something that we could go achieve as a team. We're going to be efficient, like I mentioned. So really what we tried to do was target that top quartile talent, both within Pacific Life, but also supplementing with some key outside hires. And, I'm Jim, you know this, I'm a big culture guy. I'm about, making sure that, we've got the culture established, and being able to do that with employees that aren't necessarily centrally located at one location. One of my hypotheses as we came into this thing was there is unique talent all around this country that we can potentially bring on board. And if they want to live in one of our locations, absolutely would love to have you. If you want to stay wherever you're at, we have employees in Madison, Wisconsin. We have them in New Jersey. We've got some in Florida. And being able to bring on these really talented people to join together, again, for that kind of common goal, really trying to be able to be efficient, scalable, automated, digital customer service, all from day one. We have these limited legacy systems, Jim, that we really have been trying to build exceptional customer service, really focusing on innovation. It's certainly been an exciting time.
So Brian, that's great. And you just mentioned a moment ago talking about employee culture and work-life balance, for example. Those of us that have worked with you, obviously, we do know that you have a strong focus on that work-life balance, on company culture. What has the company done? What have you done as a leader here in these last 2 years to really reinforce that work-life balance when so many people were trying to find that equilibrium in that work-from-home environment?
Yeah, really good question, Jim. And I think the commitment to the employees of Pacific Life, I mean, it really goes to the top, just in terms of the tone that our CEO and chairman, Jim Morris, set from the very beginning, that employee safety was absolutely going to be number one on our goals kind of as we move forward, really in terms of everything starts with the employee and the safety and everything with that. I mean, if you rewind a year and a half or almost 2 years now at this point, it was a really scary time, right? I mean, and it's still scary in some ways, even today with where the numbers are going with COVID and everything else. But you look at what did we specifically do as a division? One of the things that we did was to make sure that we maintained connection, that we maintained a divisional connection every week. We sat down and did a Zoom call with, at the time, wasn't very many folks, and it kind of grew over time. And we did that basically every week from the beginning of March all the way through May, of just a weekly connection point of maybe we were going to play a game, maybe we were going to do something, but just something to bring some normalcy back to life. If you can even rewind back almost 2 years ago at this point, that people actually went into offices and they saw each other every day. And Jim, even though I see you 3 or 4 times a week, I haven't seen you since February of 2020. I think these are the things that we miss, that kind of that human connection. I mentioned that I've never been in the same room with my senior leadership team. When you think about building and executing strategy for a brand new division, we had to build all of that remotely. And the challenges of working remotely, the good of working remotely. You mentioned work-life balance. That's really important to me. It's really important to every employee. And the beautiful thing about work-life balance is it's individual. Everybody has a different view based on what's going on in their life, what their expectations are, potentially where they came from. I've talked to some folks that said, wow, this is the best work-life balance I've ever had in my entire life. And then you talk to other folks. I mean, I do probably 5 touch bases a week with members of the division, because there's no walk around time. You're not able to walk around and check and see, hey, how are things doing? How are you doing? Kind of going through that way. But you just making sure you maintain that connection, having those discussions, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, and as somebody also that has experienced that, it really was reassuring as an employee of Pacific Life to have that constant communication, those touch base opportunities. And I think especially at the beginning, when frankly there was a lot of confusion, across the board, to be able to have that opportunity to connect, and whenever they knew something, we knew something. It was a good and reassuring boost to that work-life balance for sure.
And probably one more point on that, Jim, was you mentioned the rejuvenation days, and I thought that was a tremendous thing that the organization did across the board, which was for those that don't work at Pacific Life, a rejuvenation day was the company was closed typically it was on a Friday. It was basically once a month, when realized that, okay, people aren't going anywhere. They're not taking vacation days. But what they do need is that time to take off, rejuvenate, do all those things. But typically what happens if you do that, if you take a vacation day? Mm-hmm. Everyone else in the company is continuing to work. And so you come back and you may have, for some, 200 plus emails when you get back and you log on. On the rejuvenation day, the company was closed, and it was very, very refreshing. It was a great opportunity to recharge those batteries, to focus on whatever it is you wanted to focus on, whether that was to go read a book, to go take a walk, all those great things that we were able to do for the employees. It was really great.
Yeah, it really was. My kids definitely appreciated them as well. So did my wife. So I could take the kids actually, and she would have to she could have some time out. But yeah, they were definitely a benefit, and as you say, contributed to that ongoing work-life balance that Pacific Life is always focused on. So, Brian, let's talk a little bit about some of the successes in these last couple years. There have been a lot of new implementations within the division, the new website, in.pacificlife.com. There has been the new administration upgrade, and some of the marketing efforts with the Wave Strength platform. Shameless plug, head over to youtube.com and make sure you subscribe and search the Wave Strength on Spotify and YouTube. But let's talk a little bit about something that is a little unique, not just to Pacific Life, but frankly the industry, with what our investment team did, and that is the launch of the sustainability bond framework, and also to this large issuance, this $800 million issuance, where we focused on ESG, or environmental social governance, and in that space.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, I think you hit on. I mean, this is an example of really a testament to the agility, both within the institutional division, but also the organization at large. In less than 8 weeks, we were able to organize a team across Pacific Life to create the sustainable bond framework that you mentioned. Oh, by the way, that turned into the largest sustainable debt issuance in our industry to date, and there was significant, strong participation from the global ESG community. So just a really exciting example of when you put a bunch of smart people together, they can come and they can solve problems and create something that's really, really exciting. And it's just the beginning for us on the funding agreement side. But I think that's an exciting opportunity that you highlighted there.
Yeah, and I as someone who worked on that project, you touched on agility and also decision making. It truly was a less than 9-week process that led to something so unique. And we talked earlier in this call, Brian, about a digital first mentality, and I really feel that was the proof in the pudding. We really had that focus when that began, and that ability by the leadership to allow us to be agile and to have that agility as we were making those decisions through that process really allowed, I think, the team to complete that in a short amount of time.
Couldn't agree more.
So let's jump into some solutioning discussions here. A big focus right now within the division is the DCLI space, or defined contribution lifetime income space. And, our division has done some interesting work from an empathy standpoint, utilizing interviews within the company to try and solution on that topic, and also really apply a hearts and minds approach to the DCLI market. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit, Brian?
Yeah, you bring up another very exciting opportunity for us. And this, I mentioned this opportunity with the institutional division has probably been the most exciting piece of my career. This specific defined contribution lifetime income, I mean, we literally have the ability as an industry, and Pacific Life, of course, being a part of that, to really change how retirement is looked at through the defined contribution lifetime income space. It has the opportunity to address the retirement crisis for those of us that don't have a defined benefit pension plan, to really have that guarantee, the security of lifetime income, that no matter what happens over the rest of my life, I know that I'm going to get a guarantee. And if you look at the research, 9 out of 10 people, that's what they want. Mm-hmm. They want guaranteed lifetime income. They don't know what it's called. If it's a pension, they love it. If it's called something else, they may not like it. But I think what you talked about with empathy interviews and really going out and talking to people and seeing what they wanted, I think that's where the magic is. I think too often in our industry, we take the same old thing, we package it up differently, and try to, put that in a different market. Mm-hmm. And by personal opinion, I don't think that's going to work as well here. I think this is an opportunity where we go out to individuals and find out what resonates. You mentioned we talked to current employees of Pacific Life. We talked to recently retired employees of Pacific Life. Mm-hmm. And I think some of the observations that came out of that is we are a financial services company. And there was a lot of concern. There was a lot of questions that people did not understand or know how they could potentially approach their retirement. So with that, I think there's a couple of things that we can do. We can continue to dig in and figure out what are those questions and how can we solve those, not to bring a product or a solution to the table, but really looking to what solves the need of those individuals as we kind of move forward. So a lot of great work is being done in this space across the industry, and I'm just thrilled that we're able to be a part of it and be able to invest in this specific space at this time, because it's really exciting.
It is exciting. And I think, as you mentioned, a lot of the research shows, for example, if you look at what the Alliance for Lifetime Income is doing, ALI, which Pacific Life is a member, folks just are not catching on. They just don't understand a lot of the information that has been provided to them through the years. And so if we, through this research, through the interviews and content that we're creating, we can find those opportunities to connect, find ways that we can explain in a way that can resonate well, so that we can allow and help these folks to make decisions that will provide and guide them to that guaranteed lifetime income. You mentioned too the interviews. We recently did a webinar, and you can search it, The Wave Strength, with Ruth Shaw and Michael Finca. And in that, we actually went out onto the street and interviewed folks live, asking them, some of the pain points about their retirement planning process. And it was just amazing to hear what these individuals had to say about how they felt in terms of those that even had enough in the bank, but just did not know how to spend it, or they did not feel comfortable spending in retirement. Just a really interesting insight into the need for education and the need to really present and provide the information in a way that can be easily understood. So then, Brian, let's talk a little bit about the future. What are the divisional goals for the future? Perhaps maybe you could share hopes and dreams for the next 5 years.
Yeah, I would say the future's bright, Jim. As I look at, I've said the word exciting about 20 times here in the last several minutes, and that's because that's what it is. It is an exciting time to be in our industry. It's an exciting time to be at Pacific Life. I'm a big fan of repeatable messages, as you know. And what I'm looking to do is to create something that resonates within the division so that each member of the team can really tie their goals back to the strategy. So as we head into 2022, we're really going to be focused on 3 key areas, and that being achieve, grow, and scale. And those are important for us, and I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about each of those. So from an achieve standpoint, this is a little bit of play on words. So we started out with aspirational goals. Those turned into ambitious goals, and now we're looking to achieve those goals. So we have some specific kind of growth and profitability targets, which maybe I won't go into a ton of detail here on the podcast, but if you're interested in learning what those are, we'd love to talk to you about a position at Pacific Life. So we have a North Star. By 2025, we have some expectations about where we expect to be, both in terms of assets and underlying profitability. We feel we are well on our way to those goals, which I will tell you, sitting in this chair 2 years ago, were extremely aspirational. So we've had a significant growth opportunity here over the last couple of years, and it's great to see when a team comes together and can really achieve those things. So we've moved to achieve. The second is grow, and that's really about the investments, and we've talked about some of those. So what you're going to see from us is a big investment in the defined contribution lifetime income space, both in terms of thought leadership, but also, kind of really trying to make our mark in this industry to help solve real problems. So it's a really exciting time. There I go again. That's number 21 of exciting, but really kind of thinking through what are the areas to really invest in as we move forward. And that's an exciting one for us there. And the last is scale. And so really what we're looking to do for scale, we're still a new division. So we're not even 2 years old yet. I mentioned we didn't have legacy systems. There's a lot of foundations that we're still building. So there's a number of foundational capabilities. You mentioned administrative platform, process, procedure. One of the things when we started out, again, I like threes. We started out people, process, and technology. That's where we're really focused on, are those three areas, and continue to grow those foundational capabilities to help us achieve those formerly aspirational, formerly ambitious, now achieving of those goals. So it's a really exciting time to be a part of this, Jim, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Wonderful, wonderful, Brian. Yeah, that is so great to hear. And as you mentioned, looking at the numbers, looking at those goals less than 2 years ago, they were aspirational, but boy, we have come a long way, and we have so much more to do. A very exciting future ahead of us, and a lot of great team members to accomplish those new goals with. So I'm very excited. I know you are, Brian. And again, thank you, Brian, for joining us today on this episode of the podcast. Congratulations to the division, everything that we've done. And we look forward to more great things to come.
Awesome. Like I said, thanks for having me, and go hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. And to those of you who have more information about what Pacific Life can do to help you, or to learn more about our solutions, head over to in.pacificlife.com, or you can find more Wave Strength content by going to Spotify, Audible, or search on YouTube, The Wave Strength. And like Brian said, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.
This has been another episode of The Wave Strength, presented by Pacific Life. Don't forget to catch us on YouTube, and make sure to subscribe. Although this podcast is presented by Pacific Life, the opinions and views expressed are those of the hosts and participants, and do not necessarily reflect Pacific Life's views on any of the topics discussed. Pacific Life is a product provider. It is not a fiduciary, and therefore does not give advice or make recommendations regarding insurance or investment products. Pacific Life, its affiliates, its distributors, and respective representatives do not provide any employer-sponsored qualified plan administrative services or impartial advice about investments, and do not act in a fiduciary capacity for any plan. Pacific Life refers to Pacific Life Insurance Company, Newport Beach, California, and its affiliates, including Pacific Life and Annuity Company. Insurance products are issued by Pacific Life Insurance Company in all states except New York, and in all states by Pacific Life and Annuity Company. Product availability and features may vary by state. Each insurance company is solely responsible for the financial obligations accruing under the products it issues. This podcast was recorded on November 11th, 2021.